Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Phil Svitek, 360 Creative Coach. And every now and then, I have the pleasure of bringing on my friends on this series, not because they're my friends, but because they're doing something amazing in the creative space. And I want to highlight that, one, because they deserve it, and two, because there's information, both inspiration, mindset, and also tactics that I believe are that you can benefit from. And today, Mark Rodriguez, I've known him since the AfterBuzz days. So I primarily know him as a host. He did, I mean, this is dating back to like American Idol days and things like that. And so not only a host, but I also know him as a musician. But beyond that, he's also a talented filmmaker and he has his own marketing agency. Would it be fair to say that it's a marketing agency? I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah, definitely.
okay. So, I mean, one of the things like that I always kind of like to ask in that sense is, you're a multi-hyphenate, but what do you view yourself as and, in terms of your strengths and what you like to play to?
Yeah, so when we met initially, AfterBuzz was one of my first things. I was like, this is real. Like I can really fine tune some skills, especially in the hosting world, where those skills that I developed there have helped me in so many ways, shapes, and forms since then. So being a multi hyphenate, I feel like initially got me a network that was very wide, but didn't have much depth to it, right? So I came here as an actor and was, thought that I could just come here and take over Hollywood. And then 3 to 5 years into it, you're like, oh shit, wait, everybody's more talented. Everybody's better looking. And, so it was like this growth period in my 20s that really allowed me, I'm very happy that I went through so that I could really understand and create a strong foundation. But for me, what I found I'm most valuable is because I do have the creative filmmaker version of me, and then also the business knowledge and staying at the forefront of attention. So yeah, just being able to bridge the gap between those two worlds and help teach other people how to do that and how to be self-sufficient within the social media market, or if we take on their brand and then develop content, distribute it for them. So ultimately, the main thing, I do love business and I love, everything that we're doing at Mastermind. But building that business while simultaneously building a career in film that I'm writing, directing, and producing my own projects, acting in some of them as well. But I've grown to equally love writing, directing, acting, and producing. I really feel like allows you to control your career and build opportunities. So that falls within it as well. So that's me in a nutshell and where I am right now. And the biggest thing for me was learning how to kind of hone in and make things happen. Being so interested in so many different things, you can get so busy, and then eventually you're moving slowly in a bunch of different areas. I've learned to kind of narrow my focus when necessary, and realize that I can't do everything. But luckily now I have a strong team behind me that can help me kind of push the company forward as well.
Awesome. I mean, there's a lot to unpack there. And so I should first off clarify. So Mastermind Media, that is, it's not just like you're working for this marketing company. You are like, this was your baby that you started. So I want to clarify that for people.
Yeah, accidentally started.
What does that even mean?
So
how do you accidentally start,
Yeah, so when I first learned that I had to hone in on something was a moment I had where it was probably toward the end, maybe one of my last AfterBuzz days. And I was like, okay, you know what? I'm focusing on acting. I'm still going to write this feature that's going to become a vehicle for myself in other projects, but I'm going to hone it only on this stuff. And I invented a product called the Mo Show. I don't know if you ever saw me post about that, where Snapchat was really big at the time. It still is big, but it was taken over.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I was playing guitar and singing, and I wanted to play on my Snapchat, but I couldn't hold the button down and play guitar and sing. And so I was like, well, I wish I had something that I could put on the phone and clamp it down to hold the button down. So I looked around the room, and I have my guitar capo, which you can see right there. That's actually part of the model. But and I clamped it onto my phone. Guitar capo goes on the fretboard, right, and then holds the the strings down in a different key. And I put it on it, and it put pressure on the spot, but it didn't hold the button down. So I looked around the room. I thought I needed something that felt like a thumb. So I grabbed a loaf of wheat bread. I cut a piece of wheat bread off. I taped it to it, and it worked. And I was like, holy shit, is this brilliant or is this stupid? You know?
Yeah.
So I started making videos of me playing guitar and singing. And then, and people started asking me, how the hell are you doing that? So I took off all the videos that I was doing, and I built a package, built a team, and I stopped doing everything else for a year. I only worked on that. And long story short is it took us about a year to finally get to close to raising the financing. And the biggest risk that we knew of, Snapchat changed, and I lost everything. So I literally sold everything I owned, went in on that business, and finally took a leap of faith, stopped waiting tables and stuff like that. And I lost everything. But I gained so much in that time period. You know, I was couch surfing. You know, I stayed on Nick Perdue's couch, you know, and various other friends as well. And I learned so much. I became more of a valuable person in what I could give to the world. So I was going to go back to waiting tables, and I was staying at another friend's house at the time. And he was like, hey, do you think you could run my Instagram? And I had just done all this research and learned how to social media and marketing. I discovered, didn't discover him, but Gary Vee came into my world, right? And I was like, oh my God, now I learned the work ethic. I learned how to, you know, where, you know, all this attention is and how to use it to the best of my ability. And I was like, no, I'm actually going to go wait tables. I don't want to run your Instagram, and he was like, well, I'll pay you $200 a week. And I was like, okay, well, $200, like, okay, I'll do that. So we started growing his account and grew it to like 4 or 5.
Not to cut you off, but do you feel like that almost puts pressure on it? Because then it's like, shit, if you're going to pay me whatever amount of money, like you could pay me $1, it's like now, this is real, so I got to deliver, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, did you have that sense?
Oh yeah. I had just, you know, learned how to grow. I was growing mine, and I was like, okay, yeah, I can do this. And definitely is some pressure, especially because it's a friend too. Right. Yeah. So we started growing his brand. It's a really dope brand. It was called Godfather Cuisine. He still has stuff on there, and I want to bring the show back. But it's just like this cooking show about this, you know, his name's Don Giovanni, and he like kills people, and then it's like this dramatic storyline that he kills people, then he comes in then he cooks afterwards, and but it's, you know, it's a comedy, but we play it like serious, and it was just a super fun thing that really started catching on. And then he kind of referred me to a couple other people. Next thing I know, I was like, okay, let's call this Mastermind Media, because I had a company before called Mastermind Entertainment, and so I was like, so that's how I kind of stumbled into it, and I was learning how to do, you know, using Snapchat, using Instagram and Facebook primarily. And from there, you know, it was still a lot of ups and downs. You know, you get 5 clients, and you get 2, then you get 0. And then you're like deciding if you need to go wait tables again. So it was just I've heard people call it the magic dark period, where like you have to rebuild yourself and push through these barriers to eventually build what you want to build. And, you know, now I've had it for like the last 5 years. We have a team of 6 now. And, you know, for a long time, it was just me doing everything. And then as you eventually scale, right, you start doing less of the day-to-day tasks and really build on a bigger level. And I just have a really strong crew around me now that's, you know, helping me, you know, be even better as well. But yeah, it was meant to be in a sense, but now I really, really love that it happened that way. But also I've realized how valuable knowing what you're doing in the social media world is to, you know, to even make connections in the filmmaking world. I get people that, you know, refer me all the time to now producers and stuff that I was trying to contact years ago, and they wouldn't answer my calls. And now they're hitting me up like, hey, can you help me build this? And I'm like, yes, I can, you know? So.
Yeah. And the cool part is obviously, like, as part of like building it, you know, you get to, I imagine, film content for them you know, and so like that's working that muscle. Absolutely. As well.
Yeah, that's what I love most about it, is staying creative, coming up with just different concepts, seeing what other people are doing, and then, you know, taking those ideas and formulating new ideas from that. So yeah, it just keeps you on your toes. And you know, sometimes it goes really, really well. Sometimes it's harder to get to the finish line, but like I said, having a strong team that really opens your mind even more has really been extremely valuable.
Awesome. You used a very interesting phrase, the magic dark period, right?
Yes. I heard that initially from, I don't know the woman's name. She has a podcast called To Be Magnetic.
Okay.
And it's been really, really awesome for a lot of different people that I know of. And I've listened to some of it, and the Magic Dark period was something really specific that I was like, ooh, I've been there.
Well, I raised that because I feel like 2020 with the pandemic, I mean,
Mm,
you could kind of argue that that is a magic dark period. How
absolutely.
has like that impacted you? I mean, before we started, you were talking about you got all this podcast equipment. Granted,
Yeah.
podcasting is on the rise, but you can't do it. You know, you and I are doing this over Zoom, not in the same room. So, you know, you kind of have to pivot with all the things that you're doing, right? Like how did that make you rethink both from a personal standpoint and professional standpoint, that magic dark period?
Yeah, so I have been in the last 5 years, like I said, when I sold everything and was going through that whole thing, I am adapting the Gary V lifestyle or work ethic to, to my world. I was already used to like being in my bedroom that I turned into my office and working all day, every day on writing scripts, working with the mastermind clients, and then the other things that I had going on as well. So when I heard that I had to stay in my room and I could just work and I didn't have to go anywhere else, I was like, yeah, that's that's amazing. But so for me personally, it was really great especially from a working point of view. Personally, even like relationships, I went through a breakup through this period as well. So that, that added to like the personal aspect of like figuring that stuff and going through that, which is also really good for your art, of course, right? Going through those dark times. So for me, from a personal standpoint, it was a nice growth period, and then allowed me to focus on work even more. And then from a business standpoint, the first month was scary as hell because, we had this strong foundation. At that time, we had a team of 4, I believe.
Mhm.
And we lost our biggest client the first week. And I was like, oh shit, we had just signed a contract, and I was like, oh my God. Like, and I didn't know what like being a lockdown was actually going to entail. So
Yeah, no one knew.
I didn't want to like, I was like, okay, let's figure this out. Like, I can't like sue somebody over this. I don't want to ruin any relationships. And I understand because they lost their biggest client, so they couldn't afford to have us on. So I initially was like, okay, what am I going to do? But then a lot of people had more free time now. So, because they have more free time and they have some money, the people that were working all day, every day and going to the office, now they have this extra time and they realize they have to build on these digital platforms. So we started getting a lot more clientele within that realm. And so things have been progressively getting better and better from a working standpoint. And then as far as like the podcast stuff, right? Like spending, a lot of money on all this equipment allowed me to have to create a different product for our clients because we know how important voice is. I hear you talking about it as well, and you doing your podcast and all that. So we created a product called the Zoomcast, where now people record a Zoom just like this. They send it to us. We create a graphic overlay. We create their logo. We package it all together, and then we put it out on all the different platforms, and we brand everything. So just basically like kind of exactly what we're doing right here. We do that for other people so that they can continue to create content and then use that on their various other platforms as well. So that was our biggest pivot. And we've been doing that. And then a lot of like lookbooks and stuff. We do TV and film packaging. So we help people package their projects to go sell them. So we've been staying busy just because mainly people want to spend more time since there's so many eyeballs on the digital platforms, and we've been helping them do that.
And the lookbooks, that's a new thing that you guys have kind of undertaken, correct?
Yeah, exactly. That was like another accidental thing where I was packaging them all for another company that we have, our TV and film production company called Paris Films. And I was already packaging all of our projects, doing the sizzle reels for them and doing the lookbooks. And people started saying like, who's doing your guys' packaging? And I was like, well, I do. And they're like, can you do one for me? And slowly but surely people started noticing in us in that way as well. So that's become a big thing that we do as well. And that's another thing, like, just those two worlds colliding, creative and business. I feel very fortunate.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to be a little bit selfish and ask you kind of a couple of questions as far as that, because
Yeah.
So like I'm not doing like a sizzle. I'm doing a proof of concept, like a 3 minute version for my second feature film, or that's the
Hmm.
hope that it will become that. So, and this might be a stupid question on my part, but is a lookbook different than a pitch deck or just
No, so
different?
same thing. Yeah, I like calling it a lookbook for the most part. Some people call it a pitch deck. That is is like the running theme of today is like really not only showing that you know what you're doing and how you want it to look, and make it feel like it's all already real. Like we have our Chris Robertson and also Shadi Hernandez, who's on my team. They're both on my team now. They are just great graphic designers and movie poster designers. So like we make using stock footage most of the time. We'll make the cover where it looks like it's already the movie or the TV show, like better than some of Netflix's movie posters. So our job within that is to make it feel like it's already real by using your own content and or screen grabs from similar titles, right? And then editing them all accordingly, but also communicating why this project is going to make the producer investor money. But without like, I see a lot of people doing pitch decks where it's just a lot of like white background with just a lot of black text, and it doesn't have that creative vibe. I love making it feel tangible, like with the textured backgrounds that just completely, once you look at it, and I don't know, have you ever seen the lookbook for Montauk, which is Stranger Things?
I have not, no.
Yeah, so look that up. So it's on the internet and Google. Just Google Montauk, Montauk. That is what Stranger Things was called originally. And the pitch deck and the sizzle reel that they is almost the same thing, but it's in video form where you just take similar titles and you piece it together with title cards to communicate what your vision is and tell your story. If you do it right, people think that you filmed it. Somebody asked me once, a producer we were pitching, they're like, "How did you get Jessica Biel in your sizzle?" And they
Yeah.
had never seen Texas Chainsaw, so I lucked out. But yeah, using those two different things, and you can find Montauk on the internet. That is what we've used as the foundation of what we create, because it did wonders for them. It got them the ability to get their show made and them to like write and direct all their pieces. So definitely look that up to as a reference as well.
Awesome. Well, to be honest, I'm probably going to hit you up for personal services as far as that's concerned.
Absolutely. Well, no, even, we do all of ours on Google Slides. So we have a lot of different templates and that kind of stuff too. And I've even thought about creating packages where we just sell the templates for like a really low price. Because if people can't pay what we're charging, or they can't do it on their own to get it to where it needs to be, because I've seen so many horrible pitch decks, and I'm like, how did you ever, even from people that have done multiple films, and I'm like, how did you ever sell a film before? But now when they're able to walk in with something they're proud of, that they're like, they get in, they drop it on the desk, and they're like, this is it. It answers all the questions. It allows the producers and whoever they're trying to get on to not have any questions really. It's like, it's all laid out. It all looks brilliant. You can already see it being a show or a film. And so yeah, I'd be happy to help and guide you, or work on something together to get you to the finish line.
Yeah, I mean, it's always interesting to me in that sense. When you talk with executives, obviously they're in the creative space, yet I find, and not that I'm not necessarily knocking them because they have a different perhaps set of skill set, but they can't imagine things. So like you're saying, the more you can basically show them this is what it'll be, the better, because then it's like they don't have to use a part of their brain that they're not used to exercising, let's say.
Exactly. And they'll trust you to do it. So you can, hopefully keep as much creative control as, we like as filmmakers.
Yeah, no, exactly. As a quick tangent, so I'm a big Gary Vee fan too. So I just curious, what's kind of, I don't know, the whatever amount of top three, top five, whatever you want to say of lessons that you've learned.
So so also he's exactly 10 years older than I am. So I'm like, now I feel Matthew McConaughey in his Oscar speech talked about always chasing somebody that was 10 years ahead of him. It is himself. Yeah. I'm just chasing Gary Vee in 10 years in front of me. But the first time I ever saw him he was on, it was a YouTube video as I was developing that Mo Show thing. Right. And he was at USC. And he has a guru shirt on a sweater. I don't know if you've ever seen this one. And he's speaking to a bunch of entrepreneurs, and he said, Listen, just before I start, I just wanted to say that I like 1,000,000% with no hedge, believe that you can teach entrepreneurship. So like, this is awkward. And I was like, who the fuck is this guy? Right.
Yeah.
Just being honest and giving it to him. And he asked the crowd, he said, who here believes that you have the next best idea? You know exactly what you want to work on. And like a few people raised their hand, and he was like, why are you still going to school right now then? Why are you here? Like, are your parents paying for it? Because if they are, but if you're going into debt over this, and you already know what you want to do, like just leave now and go pursue it. And that was one of the first times I saw him where I just, that I dove in, and that was right before he started his daily V stuff. But for me, the biggest lesson I learned is like how much hard work it actually takes to build something successful. Because, and I brought that into my life, and I did it probably to an unhealthy way where like I worked all day, every day, but I love what I do. And I knew what I was building, and I had people in my family, like girlfriends or like just friends, like, come on, like I didn't go to birthdays for years. Didn't go to any birthday parties. And until people even would say like, hey, listen, I'm having my birthday party, but I know you don't do those things, but I just still wanted to invite you. And I was like, yeah, well, we can do lunch next week for like an hour, but I have to work. And I did that religiously, and I loved it. It got to a point where I like loved turning people down because I knew where I was going, and I knew how much hard work it took to get there. So that was the number one thing that I learned from him. And then, now once you learn stuff like that and it starts working for you, I just want to tell the world about it. So that's the biggest thing. Let me think. I love his humility and talking about, also self-awareness. If you're, knowing who you are and what you want, like that's another huge thing too. But, I could go on.
That's what I was going to say about you. I mean, you were self-aware enough, like you didn't necessarily derive joy from going to someone's birthday party. Not that you didn't ultimately care about them, but
Love him.
that wasn't for you. And I don't know, I could very much like relate to that. You've probably seen it maybe firsthand, but where like some people called me like I'm cold in that way. But it's like at the end of the day, when push came to shove and people really needed something, they knew they could depend on me, and I would do anything I could. So it's like, yeah, I might miss your birthday, but if you're down and out and really need somebody to pick you up, I will drop everything that I'm doing. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I've seen, evidence of that in you
Oh,
in that way.
absolutely. Absolutely. And it's like, and it just is what it is. And if if they will understand, or they eventually will, right? Like I even, I had roommates before, and like when I was going through this whole transition, like, and coming from like losing everything and driving like this 92 Lexus that was like barely able to get, from point A to point B, and just going through that whole thing, and just like knowing that I didn't want to go back to that. I'm very happy I had that experience, so that I could, just understand it and feel what it feels like to be that. Because I've always had, not like having a safety net or having a family I could call, but asking for anything was really hard for me as well. So that was another thing I had to overcome. But eventually, like I said, when having roommates and this and that, they'd be like, "You don't ever leave your room. Like, why don't you ever leave?" Like, but I'm happy in my zone, and I'm writing, and then I go make this, like Rudolph. We just went and made this concert trailer in Detroit, and then came back, and and then my roommates kind of saw things happening for me, and they're like, "Oh shit, like maybe he's right. Maybe we shouldn't do anything." But it's not for everyone. Being self-aware to know that that's the life, that's the sacrifice that I was willing to make, because I know where I want to go and I enjoy doing it. But eventually finding that balance, right? I was, wasn't taking care of myself. Like it was like all work, and like I didn't have the balance of like working out and stuff like that. So now that we're getting ahead of the game, I'm starting to add those things to my life. But yeah, if those people that you're not going to their birthday parties, if they're true friends, they'll eventually understand, and you get them next time.
Yeah, and for me, I mean, I always like to. One of my 2021 intentions is to have three-dimensional relationships. Right, so meaning, the basic way I can kind of summarize it is, you and I are not going to spend time talking about the weather. Right, we're going to get down to it. What are you doing creatively? What am I doing? What's in your life? Blah blah blah. Right. And in that sense, like one of the big shifts for me in filmmaking in particular was, or just in life in general, I always used to kind of just rush everything, right? So if we were on a film set, I'd be like, if God forbid you and I would like exchange two words that was in jest, because it was like, it wasn't moving the ball forward. But now I realize like you can actually have fun doing that and it does not detract from the product.
Yeah.
And that's where like fun and like productivity to me, like just meld like nothing else, you know?
Yeah, definitely. And no, I love that three-dimensional relationships as well. And that's the thing, like with my core group, and most of them aren't even here. We've been, my brother-in-law Paris, who's in Detroit, or other business partner Andre. For the most part, we're working daily, but we're only talking about stuff that we care about that's pushing the ball forward. But it's also creative stuff too. So like we don't mind. We're just all on the same page. That's what's been really, really, really great for me. But yeah, also having that balance and having the necessary conversations. Because like, so you're saying when you are on set or having those different conversations, you're saying there is a balance, or you end up having a more well-rounded conversation about other things?
For me, there is a balance, right? Like I'll be able to, I mean, I don't know if you remember from me, like in the AfterBuzz days, there wasn't like, you couldn't throw a joke at me where, like it was all about like, hey, your show starts in 5 minutes, get going here, do this. Like I was a train conductor, right?
Yeah.
Now I might bust your balls and be like, hey, I can't think of like a
No, for
thing in
sure. No, you
particular.
were a hustler. No, I loved it. And like, man, yeah, it was cool to see what you were doing over there and with Kevin, everybody, and just like you making that stuff happen. I mean, I do remember a couple gags that we did. I remember like walking into like doing after show, like with just the guitar on one time.
Yeah.
I think you were there for that. So, there was a couple,
But see, that was in service of the
to the
show.
show.
Whereas I'm talking
Yeah.
about purely like, you and I are on a film set and, they're setting up the lights. It's like
Yeah.
they're setting up the lights. If I'm not detracting from something like, I'm not saying this, like if there's about to be like a very serious scene that's about to be filmed, I know you got to prepare and things like that. But if like, we're just kind of in some downtime, like, yeah, let's chat. Like what harm does it do? And it's not like it's going to slow anything down. So I think I've managed to be more even keeled in that sense, where I'm not high strung all the time of like, God forbid we waste 2 seconds,
Yeah, and I think especially like since you're creating your own projects, and I really made a point to that as well, like to have some of those conversations with people that maybe I would have just walked by as we're getting stuff done, but like going to see the security guy that was watching the stuff outside on our set and like, hey man, how's it going? What's your name? Like, what do you do? Oh, like, oh, awesome, great to meet you, man. Thanks so much for being on here. Let me know if you need anything, and just really making sure that I was that core person that was really talking to every single person and connecting with them in some way, shape, or form. So yeah, I definitely feel like we're on the same page with that.
Yeah. Yeah, I've learned to be more of a quiet leader than a screaming leader, I think is my biggest growth.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, because I remember being all business, but I never thought it was a bad thing. I was like, it's just.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to me, the biggest difference was for some reason, it always felt like I was trying to attain something. It's like, at the end of the day, whatever milestone you reach, like there's always going to be more. And so it's like, you're just going to wear yourself out. I mean, that's why you see so many articles about burnout and things like that.
Yeah.
And that became a real worry. And I was seeing friends of mine do get burnt out who were working far less than I, not because they didn't have the stamina, but just, that's just life. And so it's like, yeah, it's like, what am I, at the end of the day, I don't want to just, it's great. Like we can look at amazing artists and they've like outlived their time on this earth, but how many of them really did enjoy it? And so in some sense, I'd rather still enjoy the life that I have and leave maybe less of a legacy than just like create this body of work that outlives me, but like I had a shitty life.
Yeah, but I definitely see what you're saying, and I think with that in mind, it's definitely going to allow you to enjoy the journey even more, which in turn also makes, I think, a more well-rounded legacy as well.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, that's definitely a really great point and something important that people should take into consideration. Because yeah, I'm right with you. And I remember I even asked Andre, one of my business partner, that one time, like, because I noticed based on being like that, I didn't like any small talk. Like I would find myself in conversations like thinking like, I don't care. Like if somebody new, or like I didn't, even like going out to a bar and having conversation, like, why are we're not talking about anything.
Yeah.
Right. And so I felt that way too. And I felt like something was wrong with me. I was like, I don't want to be that guy. So, and what he told me was something about like, as far as being a storyteller, like learning and asking, because I always noticed he's always really great at asking questions and getting in depth and like asking about experiences. And I'm like, wow, okay, if I take that perspective, it's very interesting to me. And now I don't come off as this like cold person, because I would talk, but I wouldn't be listening based on that new mindset, right? Because we're always growing. You adapt to this new thing, and then you're like, okay, what is this new vehicle I'm in? And so then, yeah, once I started, listening from a storytelling perspective, and learning about people, and that helps you be more, well-rounded and have, more empathy based on certain situations and stuff. And just helps you learn more. So yeah, I definitely have been there. It's interesting that you bring that up, because I probably wouldn't even have thought about that for a minute. And that's something, yeah, it's definitely something important to be aware of.
Yeah, I mean, part of it, the way I would argue it is, like you said, I mean, it is necessary for us as artists. I don't care if you're like painting a painting, you might not necessarily consider that storytelling, but yes, it is conveying some sort of message. And I think that ties in beautifully, in my mind at least, to Rudolph, right? So the piece is a modern day version of, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, and not like with actual reindeer, but with human beings. And, I don't think, to me, it's very clever in that way. And I don't think it's something that if you didn't have a connection to humanity and you weren't empathetic with people and just kind of things, I don't know if that would have came out of you. You know what I mean? But
For
I mean, in
sure.
your own words, like, talk about the project and things like that. And, uh, you know,
Yeah, so Rudolph was so in November of 2019, a producer friend of ours, we were doing another project with them, and she hit us up and said, "Hey, do you guys have any Christmas projects?" And in my head, I'm like, I don't do Christmas projects. Like, I don't like that cheesy stuff or whatever. It's just too cheesy for me. And my mom watches Hallmark and Lifetime, and like she, runs it all. Like she knows all of that stuff. And I was just like, but I do love Christmas Story and like stuff like that, right? I love Elf. So I thought, I was like, wait, if there's something I could do my way, I'd be interested in it. And so maybe that night or another night that week, I was laying in bed and I was like, wait a second, what if we like personified the characters from the Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer story to like kids on a high school basketball team? And my girlfriend at the time were like, we just started going back and forth, just like saying, the coach could be Santa Claus, and like, his nose could get red from walking in the cold for a long time. Cause that's when I used to walk to school. It would be like 25 minutes. I was like allergic to the cold, where my skin would get real blotchy and like I would get bumps, like not goosebumps, like welts on me. And people used to like, was there for like 3 hours, and it was super embarrassing. So I was like, what if, maybe his nose gets red because it's too cold outside. And then, they're laughing and calling him names and all these different things. So I turned the light on and we just started writing on the whiteboard, all the, just dying laughing about the different ways we could do it. So I packaged it all up, created a lookbook, like within days, got it back to our producer friend. And she had already like pitched the people she was going to pitch. It was too late. I think I even sent it to her, but maybe she just didn't get in time. So I just had it in my back pocket, like, here's this Rudolph piece. And we were planning on doing this other piece in Detroit in November of this last year. And it was going to take 7 days to shoot. And 7 days in a pandemic, when your budget is like, our budget was like 35,000, but based on like shooting on the best stuff, it was like, and we didn't have all the money yet. And it was like, fuck, I don't know if this is going to be the right move. And my brother-in-law, Paris, he came to me, he's like, hey, listen, I think we should just do Rudolph instead of do a concept trailer and do something that we could shoot in 2 days. And then we can put it out and, use that as leverage to make the feature next year. And I was like, damn, that feels like it. This feels like what it should be, man. And like, I really want to do the other piece I wrote and I was going to direct and star in as well. And I was like, yeah, let's do that. So that same day we called our financier, and she was, very receptive to the idea. She loved it. She said she got chills when I was just talking about it, and she loved Christmas films. And she's like, that's just like for sure. But she didn't even know about the project before. She had only known about the fixed piece. That's why I took that screenshot. I put that on my Instagram just to show like the conversation about as we like pivoted and decided to do Rudolph. But I didn't have a script yet. I had the whole outline of what I wanted the feature to be. you know, she committed, at that time we were going to do like 15,000 was going to be the budget. It ended up more than doubling based on like COVID expenses and like shit, you know, falling through the cracks and like having to, you know, do some different things. But we, so in that time I started writing this 7-page trailer, which I don't know if you've ever written a trailer. Like I know you said you're doing a concept piece, maybe a scene or something like that. I thought, oh, this will be easy. We can just, you know, figure this out. And it was just another beast to write the dopest 7 minutes into a of the feature into a concept trailer. So yeah, we just went to work. We started lining up the crew that we had already in Detroit. We got to Detroit. Our cinematographer that we were going to use ended up not being able to do it like a week before. We found our other cinematographer, Jeff Sukes, and you know, we just really. It all came together in a way where I never thought it wasn't going to happen, but there's so many times we were so close to it not happening, that, you know, it just makes it that much better afterwards. And it was a super great, period of growth for myself as well. You know, relying on other people to pull their weight to be able to get us to the finish line and have the best product. And yeah, and we shot it in 2 days. I came back to LA. I edited for like 14 days, and we were going to bring another editor on once I got it to like the foundation, but eventually it got to the point where I was able to get it to the finish line myself. And then we put it out, and it was very, very well received. There was some people that were like, kind of, I think, upset that we were messing with the Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, like messing with people's childhoods. But yeah,
well, they don't have to watch it. I mean, plain and simple. They're like, they don't watch it.
Yeah, well, it ended up on Reddit. It was on Reddit, and we got a bunch of people that came at us, like, you know, just like talking shit about it, which was great because it fueled so much more controversy. So, and then we put it on Facebook and just got, you know, most people loved it. So people didn't know how to take it, and I think a big reason was like seeing his red nose was like, this is unrealistic. And, you know, we tried to ground it in the best we could, but it's what I love about putting a proof of concept out before you make a feature is you get all this data that you can use as you formulate the finished, you know, the final vision of what the feature is going to be. So, so yeah, it's been a really, really great ride. And now we're taking the next steps to do the feature.
Well, obviously I don't know all the input data that you have, but I mean, at the end of the day, no one knew what the hell Elf was going to be apart from the people that did it. And so in that regard, like, you know, if there's anything that like dramatically you're like rethinking, I don't know, my advice would be have some caution, you know, like for me, I saw the spirit, like, you know, again, it's either you're on board with it or not. I mean, how on board are you going to be with basically like a claymation reindeer anyway? You know?
Yeah, that's
like,
true.
Come on.
And that's the approach that we're really taking with this. The biggest thing we were contemplating was like, if we wanted to go like red nose or not, was like, that was one big thing. But what we're really doing is we're telling the story. Have you seen Finding Neverland with Johnny Depp?
Yes. Yeah.
So it's the creation of the Peter Pan story, the family that the writer was with and that inspired the story. So there is a character in this that wasn't in the concept trailer that is going to be a younger version of, I think his name's John L. May or Robert L. May. That he was the writer of Rudolph originally. So we're doing like a modern day version, but he's watching at the school and he's watching this all play out. And that's what he's using to be inspired to write the children's story for a class assignment throughout. So, so that's like, yeah. And that's what's so funny is that's what everybody we pitched it to initially with the lookbook, they were like, yo, yes. And that's what we got for the most of it. But you know, it's funny, you know, getting on World Star. I was on World Star. So we got, you know, another group of people, like, you know, some people wanted to cringe at it. Then they watched it and they were like, wait, this is actually really, I'm surprised how serious you guys played. This is really dope. So, so yeah. And listen, I've been called like ridiculously insane for doing it, but I've also been like, you know, called brilliant. And I think that's the kind of creator I want to be. I don't want to do anything that's just like down the middle. Like I want people to think I'm insane or like asking if I was stoned when I wrote it. And you know, I take that as a compliment now.
Well, down the middle means nothing. Like quite literally. I mean, what are they? It's like, huh? Like, is that the reaction you know, of like,
exactly. Yeah.
You know, it's all, I don't know if you're an Office fan, but like when Dwight puts up the, it is your birthday. It's, you know, it'd be the equivalent of like, this is your movie.
Yeah.
Okay. Is it good? Is it bad? You know? So
absolutely.
What was it? Another selfish question, but I think pertinent to what was it like to shoot during COVID? Because I mean, for me, heading into this proof of concept, I'm shooting against the green screen, and I've literally minimized it where it's going to be me as like the sole crew. We're going to pre-light everything, but like on the day of actual shooting, it's going to be me, and then very Robert Rodriguez style, of like Sin City, I'm bringing in people, and there's going to be a whole group of them, but really just shooting one person against the green screen, and yet there's still this weight that I feel, right, of
Yeah.
like I got to keep these people safe.
Yeah, I think
So
the main thing, I would get somebody else to do that. If you could find a COVID officer that is like, that's what they do. We had a lot of people that were a couple of people that were certified, Amy Sloan, and then we had another like COVID officer that would come in and like, tell people, all right, get out, get in, get out. There's too many people in here, whatever. Because the first day we shot at a house. And we shot all the outdoor stuff. So that was pretty easy to keep everybody spaced out and contained and separate. But the second day we're in this gym, which is helpful, but it was, there was a lot of classrooms. So we spaced things out that way. But having people there or even if it's just like just a PA that you can have, or somebody delegating, because that way you don't have to worry about it. You can focus on directing and all that. So I would do that, because it
was there a mix? Like, what did you guys like as far as the gym is concerned? Did you guys have to keep like the doors open for the airflow, but at the same time, depending on the traffic outside, you're like, God damn it, the effing car is honking again. Like, can we just get some
yeah.
good sound here?
Yeah, so with the gym, because we didn't keep the doors open. We kept maybe the doors open to the hallway, and they kept everybody spaced out. But yeah, we had people in charge of that. I'm trying to think exactly what we did. There was times like it was like, hey, if you're not in the scene, you got to go outside and that kind of stuff. And it was also it
It was
was starting
cold,
to get
right?
kind of cold there. Yeah. I was hoping for snow, but we didn't get it. It snowed the day after. I'm like, fuck, man, I wanted that. But yeah, I would get somebody that can really, and take it super seriously. Like my team, our executive producer, she was on it. She made sure we had all the PPE equipment we need, and she also was like, just drilling me in the head with like, yo, it has to be safe, can't have this many people, this and that. And then, that's why we did like the crowd scenes. We had people spaced out, and then, just in one part of the gym, and it was like real quick, and they were out. But yeah, definitely having people in place to hold all that stuff. So that way it's not really on your mind. And that was something that I really didn't think about. But everybody, because we made sure everybody knew how serious it was. Everybody got tested. Everybody wore a mask the whole time. And if they weren't, they would be reminded, right? Even Rudolph, like he would have his mask on, but it wouldn't be on his nose because he couldn't get the red part off. So, but everybody else was fully masked up. And even between shots, right? Like in the classroom, it would be like, and I never fully remembered to do this, but my AD was like, hey, when you call cut, can you say cut, put your mask back on? And I kept forgetting. So she eventually was like, fine, I'll, she'll say it. But that was everybody would have a mask. Boom. They take it off for the shot, and they put it back on while we were or afterwards, put it back on. And we had zero issues. Everybody was super understanding. Everybody wanted to stay safe. And it really just allowed everybody to do their job. And so I highly recommend having someone specific to do that. Cause even with budgets and these bigger films, and our budget went up like $6,000. Like there's not really especially for our price point, there wasn't like an insurance for COVID, right? I'm not sure what they're doing now for these bigger features, but I know for like $1 million piece, like your budget goes up like 200,000 even just for COVID expenses.
Yeah, I mean, my friend, so he's in Chicago, and he's having a nightmare of a time. They're about to start filming like mid-February, and they have like $500,000 budget, which for an indie movie it's not bad,
Yeah.
But like more than 100K of that is just for COVID protocol. Like fuck,
You just can't get around it. Yeah.
and obviously it's necessary, and in that sense, and I get it.
And that's that's why like you have to take it fully seriously and have somebody that's really maybe locking things down with that. But I think if you can only make it as safe as you can make it, and that's where yes, it's obviously a risk that everybody's taking to be a part of it, but you want to just minimize that risk as much as possible. And once you do that, like if you're too worried about it, then you're not going to be able to focus on your creative. So yeah, I would definitely get someone that to
Yeah.
like, point the fingers and yell at people. That'll make it a lot easier. But I love that you're doing it the way you're doing it. A friend of mine, Paige Simpson, she just did she's executive producer on Yearly Departed on Amazon Prime. Did you see that?
I haven't. No, I haven't seen a lot of Amazon stuff,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
so it was just like the year end. They eulogized the 2020. So
Yeah.
they had like Sarah Silverman, Tiffany Haddish, a bunch of other women comedians, powerhouses, and Rachel Brosnahan. That's she's on Marvelous Miss Maisel.
Mhm.
They have a production company called Scrap Paper Pictures, and they made this thing happen. They shot it in I think 2 or 3 days, something like that. And but they, same thing as you, like they, with visual effects, they had to drop everybody in, and they really, at the end of it, I think you like it, at the very end of it, they show what everybody looked like and how they did it with all the green screens and everything. It was just
Yeah.
super cool how they really communicated the BTS on that one.
Yeah. No, I mean, very much like for me, it's you were talking about that moment of like with the guitar and Snapchat. This is very much it's either genius or it's like, am I just really that stupid that like this, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's when you
But
know it's real.
yeah, so I'm looking forward to that.
No, that's awesome. When are you shooting that?
This weekend actually.
That's amazing. Congrats, man.
Yeah, it'll be it's definitely I mean, I don't know. I think it's gonna happen, but obviously everyone's prepared. Like if I have to pull the plug, we
Mhm.
pull the plug type of thing. But we'll see.
And how many you're shooting in, like 2 days or something, or one day, or what?
One day, yeah.
One day.
And because it's all green again, so so one person comes in, then I film them out, then they leave. And then, like that's why, the next person doesn't come in until like the other person is fully filmed out type of thing. And because it's all against all green screen, I'm being very, like, I'm not even going through full takes. I have everything storyboarded out. So like if there was a shot of you for 5 seconds, I'm just going to get 2 to 3 takes of
Yeah.
you, exactly in that way. And for better or worse, I love doing my own camera work. Not that I'm the world's greatest cinematographer by any stretch of the imagination, but I can then see if I capture the performance. And I also like to do my own editing. Maybe
Mhm.
I was, I think if you know Robert Rodriguez, I think I was just overly influenced by him in that way.
Yeah, yeah.
So I can film very quickly. So we're pretty much going to get like 40 shots in a matter of less than 8 hours.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that's literally how I felt. Like we're gonna have to pull the plug any minute. Like I
Yeah.
always knew we were gonna make it happen, but at the same time, I'm like, it felt like we were gonna have to pull the plug at some point. So like, it feels like you're right in the right mode. That's just how it feels to shoot during COVID, and it's gonna happen. You're gonna make it happen, but it's just part of it. So that's really dope. I love just being innovative with these different times and forcing yourself to create and in a safe way. But man, I saw a lot of people posting on social about like, if you didn't find your hustle during this time, like it's not in you.
Yeah.
And maybe that's still a little too harsh, but I think you have to be at a certain stage in your life and career, and also like, I mean, this affects everybody differently. How serious you're taking it, or how I think taking it seriously is the way to go. But also, finding a way to take advantage of the time if you can. Obviously, a lot of people are hurting for money or like the health and all these different things. So, if you can create and help create a great project that's going to affect the world positively, or, help other people around you show what they can do. And so that once this is lifted and we're free again, then you have something to show for it. And that's really what I'm trying to do right now, is stack the deck in our favor, to have all of our projects either packaged and ready to go, while simultaneously raising the money for these other like features, but also shooting some short form stuff to just see what happens.
Yeah. And I think that, I think you summarize it very well in that sense. Like, I will never knock anyone down. Like, if they're using this time to, for self-development reasons, I think that's, because who's to say that once COVID's out, like that time was well spent, right? Because now they can go. Or like you said, they're in a financial hardship or they've taken care of somebody. Like, I'm never going to knock anybody in that way. But, I don't know how many friends you have like this. I certainly have at least a few. And I talk to them, like, I want to be doing something. I want to be hosting something. It's like, then what are you doing? Like literally, you and me right now, we're literally like Jimmy Kimmel and Stephen Colbert. Like they're no better than us right now. They're in their damn
Yeah.
home.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it's like, so like you're saying, what can we do in this moment? And because I have gotten some criticism of like, I think, you know, people are saying, you know, some of my friends are like, you're kind of crazy to be considering filming right now. And I'm like, yes, I understand that, but I've minimized the risk. And conversely, I'm like, what am I going to do? And that, because in the sense, like I pushed other avenues of like, well, you know, let's do this, and we can meet over Zoom, and we can outline a story, we can write this, and it's like, you know, at a certain point, if you're not willing to like do that with me, then I'm gonna do what I can do
Mm-hmm.
and get it there, you know?
And I think it would be different if there was like no other filming going on and there was nothing, not saying like, you know, like I'm saying like even people in the business, like you saw what Tom Cruise said, you know, being on set and these big jobs and this and that. If this was a full lockdown and you weren't allowed to leave your house and then you were still filming, then it's something where you're like, hey, listen, you know, but you know, the fact that other projects are going on and you're taking the necessary precautions, I think, you know, you're always going to get some pushback and you know, just you gotta learn and keep it as safe as possible. And, you know, we were very successful in that. Everybody was safe. Everybody got through it. And, you know, we definitely had more people on set than you did and that you're going to have. So it's just, I would just, get everybody tested. And then to make sure you have somebody just making sure everybody else is doing what they're supposed to be doing. And, just make it happen.
Yeah, going back to Gary Vee, because like, you know, we kind of touched upon it, but he has this very very specific thing of like, a lot of people just love to be academic about things, right? So, you know, I could sit back and kind of criticize, let's say, anything that you've done, or people can sit back and criticize you and I, and it's like, okay, that's all well and good, but what have you, you know, his story is like, one of his friends told him like, Gary, if I asked you to come into a meeting, you'd literally just run through that wall and like get to me, when instead you could have just taken the door. He's like, okay, but I still got to the meeting.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, I'd rather do the thing, even if incorrectly, and get it done, versus like, again, we can sit here and do a Harvard Business Review of like what did work and what didn't, but to do that for your entire life, you're never going to accomplish anything.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, somebody said to me, I don't think I've ever heard this before. A friend of mine who's become like a mentor to me, Mark Riley, he brought up, he said like, you know, business books are for people that are never actually going to run a business,
Yeah.
you know,
Mark
like
Riley from the Schmoes and all that, or a different Mark Riley?
different Mark Riley, I believe.
Yeah,
So
probably.
yeah, he's been like really pivotal in my experience. And every time I'm like, I hit a dead end, or I'm you know, trying to figure something out, I hit him up, and he's always got great advice on how to, you know, so it's always important to have those people that are doing things even on a higher level. And we're actually shooting a video with them tomorrow, but what was I going to say? Yeah, like, you know, but I mean, I just think it's important if you are starting a business, like I get if you read one book and then you go do it, but it's just really applying what you're doing, man. And just like, you know, just if reading business books is your thing, if you know, just make sure that you're putting it into, you know, in your real life and actually making things happen. Cause that's what I've loved about my journey, is a lot of stuff that I didn't learn by going to business school or reading books was, you know, down the road now looking back or watching something and I'll hear about like some of the lessons. I'm like, oh shit, I did do that. You know, maybe it took me a couple of times, but you learn it. You just have to be putting things in action for sure.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I love knowledge. So I'll always, you know, continue learning in that way. So I think I might be, you know, for better or worse, I don't know if it'd be 50-50, but I also think, you know, a big lesson that I did learn. So there's a great book, because I think that's the key, right? So many people read books, but they don't apply the lesson, right? So for me, if I'm going to read a book, I'm not just reading it for the fuck of it. I'm reading it because I want to gain that thing. And I remember reading this book called the Startup J Curve. And then what it argued was you kind of track all these like very successful companies. And what they did was when you talk about pivot, so many people ask of like, what didn't work? And all these companies, even though if they didn't know it, they looked at like, what was the one thing that did work? And they just kept iterating in that sense of like, okay, like you said, I mean, it's evident in your own story. You tried the Snapchat thing. Okay, that didn't work, but it was like, okay, what did work out of this? And granted, it happened organically for you, but it was like, oh, I got to understand social media really well, and I also got to understand entrepreneurship and how to like package and whatever, right? So that pivoted into this, and then it just kind of continues from there. And so, but you were also willing to do the steps. So it was that blend. Love it.
Absolutely. And that's what it has to be. And that's what, Gary Vee, another thing he talks about is like taking, those are your L's, like take your losses. And like, cause I remember when I would ask people about, what do you think about the Mo show? And I would ask people that didn't know about it or didn't know like the target demographic, or that weren't even in it, like asking people I was working with at a restaurant, and they'd be like, no, that's stupid. Then I'd go back, I'm like, fuck, it is stupid. Like, why, ask people that actually matter to, and matter meaning like ask a 13-year-old kid to see if they would use it to use their Snapchat. Ask somebody that's created toys before. It's not that he doesn't matter. He just, his opinion doesn't matter necessarily because he doesn't.
Well,
He wouldn't
I'll
write
put it to you this way, right? So Tim Ferriss, one of the things he talks about is so many salesmen spend so much time trying to convince someone of something to the customer who's never going to buy that product.
Mhm.
Right? That's essentially what it is. And so, it's funny, like someone hit me up about like X, Y, and Z, and I'm like, I'm not interested. I'm not your client. And they kept trying to pitch me. I'm like, you are wasting your time. I will at this, like, just whatever you say is not going to, I'm not your target customer. I'm just not. And it's so funny how people just continue to still waste time and be like, hey, can we convince you this way? I'm like, you can't. But that's the natural inclination of most people, is to try to get customers that aren't their customer. It's like there's 8 billion people in this friggin' world.
There's so many people. It's crazy.
You know?
It's so crazy. Yeah. No,
So,
I definitely hear you on that. And, but that's just like being in the game and learning, right? Like I've been that person before probably. Yeah. And learning through, growing through that, then you like, and it's so weird, like in hindsight too, you're like, man, people ask something or not know about something that feels like second nature to you now. And then it's like, oh wow, that's what I've really realized on Clubhouse, using Clubhouse. Have you been using it?
I have not. I was actually going to ask you about Clubhouse. What that's like, and kind of what you're seeing, the trends and
oh my
the
gosh,
interactions.
it's been amazing. So Clubhouse, I've in the consulting world, when I consult different businesses about how to use social media, how to create content, how to produce valuable content. And that's what we say when we go and, talk to a client. It's like, we want to extract your value and then create content around it and then push it out to your target demographic regularly. Right. And, speaking in Clubhouse, I've gotten to these rooms with a lot of like, executives and, film producers and, writers, directors. There's a lot of different stuff on there, but it's been really amazing. Extremely great growth tool. I mean, I have like Zoom set up all like next week based on people I met there. And there's some people that are like, trying to get into filmmaking and want to learn about lookbooks and all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to just kind of show them some stuff, but a lot of people that are like way far, further down the road than I am, and are like producing, have a slate for 2021, 2022 already. And what I've realized is like, when I went to Sundance for the first time, and now we go every year, except for obviously this year it's not going to happen, on Main Street. Have you been to Sundance before?
I have not, no.
Yeah, so we went to Sundance, and what we've really found is that, because like LA gets a bad rap of having people that are pretentious or like, out for themselves, or trying as they're trying to grow in this business. But what Sundance is like all of these great filmmakers on all different levels on one street in Utah. And it's everybody from, New York, LA, Atlanta, all over the world on one street, and everybody wants to help everybody out. And it's just like, everybody's just humans there that want to help everybody. And that's why there's a lot of, people speaking about their film and listening how they did it and all that stuff. And it really feels like that on Clubhouse as well. It's just a lot of rooms where, you make the moderators at the top. And if you guys haven't heard of Clubhouse, those listening to this, it's a new app and it's still in beta testing. It hasn't gone public yet, but
is it only for iOS? I mean, I think that's part of the reason why. Okay, that's definitely a reason why I also haven't been able to.
Yep. So
Yeah.
it's, if you grab an iPhone this week, let me know. I have some invitations. So it's on an invite only basis right now. So
Yeah.
it's, so you either have to be invited or you go in and then somebody that is your friend on there will like let you in. And that's the exclusivity is part of the reason I think it's really taking off initially. However, the conversations have been really, really great. So the moderators will be at the top, and it's all, it's a listening platform.
So
So everybody.
just to take a step back. So in theory, if I had an iPhone, I could be invited, not necessarily like I would get the chat, but I could be a fly on the wall to any of the conversations. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So some of the conversations you'll go through, like you'll have your profile picture on there, right?
Mhm.
And it's all audio. So basically you go through the hallway
Mhm.
and there's all these different rooms and they'll say like, let me look right now. I'll even show you those watching here. So you have your profile up. Let's see. So this is like your hallway. I don't know if you can see
Mhm.
this. So
Okay.
these are all different rooms. Like Grant Cardone was doing a room earlier about like having people pitch him and him helping out. So these different rooms are actors workshop with the casting director, modern Nirvana, behind the lens photographers, actors, models, makeup and hair. So all these different rooms, some of them have 60 people, some have 221. You can click on it and you'll go to the audience. Then you can raise your hand to become a speaker, which usually the smaller rooms will allow you to do that. The bigger
Mhm.
ones you won't be able to, they'll turn it off. And there's moderators at the top that are controlling the conversation like you would moderate an interview or some kind of something like that where you have audience basically. So there's people
Yeah.
in the audience are at the bottom of the scroll. The middle are people that are followed by the people that are moderators, and then when you raise your hand you can go up to the top thing with the moderators and ask a question and that kind of thing. And it's just a bunch of great people just providing value and helping people get to where they want to go, saying like, hey, DM me on Instagram, because while you're listening to the conversation, you can't DM on Clubhouse yet, but you can go to their profile, you can click Instagram, go to their Instagram while you're still keeping the conversation. So you're going through it still. And
That's awesome.
yeah, and you're just able to grow, like the most I've seen somebody like Tiffany Haddish maybe had like 100,000 followers. That's the most I've seen so far.
Mhm.
Maybe not just her. There's probably people bigger than her, but that's one of the ones that I saw where they were actually, like Joe Budden's pretty big on there. And but you can grow, like people are following you if you go up there and speak, a lot of people will follow you, and then you'll even get a lot of followers on Instagram too, because that's where they can contact you and follow your journey a little bit further. So so it's just great conversation. But they'll also have like a prank room. Like I was in a prank room the other night with The Game, Chris Brown, and some other
And the
people where they
baby
were like,
voices.
yeah,
Is
the
that what you
baby
thought?
voice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's,
Explain to people because I don't want to just throw in an inside joke and be like, "What the hell is that?"
yeah. I was doing it on my Instagram talking about what they were doing in that room. But yeah, some girl had a baby voice and they had called, I forget the guy's name, that OT, I think, that sings I'm in Love with the Coco. So The
Mhm.
Game called him and he was like, hey man, I got this baby in the studio. Hold on a second, man. This girl left his baby behind. And then this girl did a baby voice and was talking to him and he was just dying laughing. So it was just, but it's cool to see how people are taking a new platform that's really taking off. I think it's going to be, you would love it, man. Damn, you got to get
I
a
would.
little.
I mean, obviously, there's a lot of brilliant things about it, but the fact that it's audio only, so like, because I know, like, now I think there is a bit of a Zoom fatigue of like, wait, I gotta do what? I gotta put on my hair and makeup
Yeah.
and this and that, and it's one thing to look camera ready, it's another thing to look Zoom camera ready, right?
Right.
So the fact that like, okay, great, let's just talk into this, like
Yeah.
I think that's brilliant.
Yeah, it's really, they're just doing a really great job. I think the valuation of it was like 100 million, like a month or two ago, and it's just growing like crazy now. And they're just doing a really great job, and people are really getting a lot of value from it. Of course, people are getting addicted to it and being on it all day and stuff. But and I'm finding balance within that to make sure I put the time in, because it's like jumping on Instagram before Instagram had a million subs and all that, or million monthly active users. So highly recommend getting on it. But you would definitely love it and be able to provide a lot of value and grow really fast on there and help a lot of people within it.
Can I
So
use a
I've
tablet? I have a tablet.
possibly,
I don't know
no,
if
no,
I
not
could
a
have.
tablet. Wait, it's not like a tablet, like
Like an
a
iPad.
iPad. You have an iPad. I think you can.
All right, look at that. See,
I think
I'm
so.
gonna I'm gonna give it a try. I'm gonna get back to the people. I'm
Yeah. So
gonna see if an
I
iPad
have an
works.
invite. I'll send you an invite and then see if it works on the iPad. But yeah, it's just cool to see how people innovate and use it different ways and do table reads on there. And
Yeah,
it'll be cool to see where it goes from here.
yeah, no, I'm really excited. We've covered a lot. So is there anything that I could continue on with questions for days, but is there anything that in particular you want to make sure to touch upon before we wrap this thing out?
What do I want to touch upon? No, I mean, that we obviously have covered a lot. It's been super cool catching up with you and hearing everything that you have going on. Yeah, let's definitely stay in contact with like even like the packaging and that kind of stuff. And if I can help, you know, in any of your stuff as well. What was I going to say? I think actually, I was talking to Steven the other day about some of like even the podcast setup.
Stephen Lemieux? You
Yeah.
said? Okay, cool.
Yeah. I was asking him about some like cameras and stuff like that. You with your background in podcasts and stuff like that, right? Like with cameras, if you were starting, you know, your own podcast thing now, right? After having all that experience and stuff, what would be like the tools that you would use today to make a podcast studio, I guess, from cameras or mics to like what programs would you use? Like I remember the stuff that you guys would use and you guys had the whole
Yeah.
thing set up in there. What kind of would you use these days?
I mean, people swear by Streamlabs, and I think that's a very useful tool for the streaming aspect. Um, you know, cameras, anything that you can really kind of use to ingest in your computer. An interesting one. There was the Movi, which was like this one camera, but you can also like the basis is, you know, it has a very high resolution. And so you can get a wide shot out of it, a medium, a close up. And, you know, if you know, you and I were kind of like side by side like this, you know, and the camera was filming us this way, then, you know, I can get a close up of you, close up of me. So that's interesting. So it just depends. For me, it always depends on kind of like the layout.
Mm-hmm.
But because you're you and because you also like Gary Vee, at the end of the day, content or quality is subjective.
Yeah.
I mean, half of Gary's content is him in a car,
Right.
and people listen to it because because of the thing, you know. And as he always likes to say, like, I could cut your face and my face, put it on stick figures, and if it gets 20 million views, why is that not quality?
Right, for sure.
Right. So quantity. That was the other thing. Maybe this is a good point to end on. But like, you know, you coming from the hosting world, and I know a lot of hosts, like I'm seeing so many more CEOs of companies putting out so much more content than the friends that I know that are hosts. And I'm like, listen, motherfucker, what the hell? Why is the CEO of a company I've never heard of putting out way more shit than you that wants to be a host? Like, get in the game, buddy.
Yeah, for sure.
You know?
No,
You're like,
absolutely.
oh, the quality. I'm like, quantity creates quality.
For sure. And that's what one thing that even from, you know, years of creating and stuff like that, and looking back at the shit that I create, I love how you've been posting your stuff from back in the day. And I'm like, that's like a big thing that I sell to people. I'm like, listen, I've created shit before and I've learned how not to do it as often. And,
Exactly.
so that way you don't have to do that as much. And there's so many ways, and that's what we teach even with like, you know, running your whole business. And I used to run it all from my iPhone. I would even do photo shoots on my iPhone for clients because I wanted to show them like, hey, you can shoot as good of pictures with this that you can with a camera. And it's as much quality as you need. And, you know, so I definitely, I feel the same on that. And we even like the stuff that we shot before, we were shooting like on a Canon camera, and it was great and it worked. Now that we have like the creative space that we have now, we're going to start renting it out to like clients and that kind of stuff. We're going to start doing some, you know, like multi angles and running it all through the computer. But yeah, I definitely agree with you on that quantity stuff, man. It's just, and I love how I remember you even making a point to talk about what you're going to do in 2021 and how much content you're going to put out. And like, you said that, right? Like that was something that you made a point of, and you're doing it. And that's and I know how hard it is to stay up on all that. So I commend you for really making things happen and staying consistent with it, because it shows, and it's all really, really great content. So.
Yeah, I mean, and at the end of the day too, like I never know what the hell's going to hit. I mean, there was a video I did on TikTok. I'm like, hey guys, you know, one of my tricks is I always have a giant 1 gallon water bottle next to my bed. So that way I'm always staying hydrated. I was like, what the fuck is this throwaway piece of garbage? God, yeah. All of a sudden it's getting like tens of thousands of views. And I'm like, really? This versus like all the other stuff that I talk about?
Yeah.
You know, but so I don't get to determine that, you know, and people just got to get outside of their head about that.
You just become the gallon water bottle guy where you're just like, listen, whenever I go for a walk, I always keep my You just keep on
Why
pouring
not?
it
You know?
over.
Yeah, exactly.
No, that's so true. And you just, putting as many things out there as possible to be able to get something to hit. And
Yeah.
that's real, man.
And again, it doesn't mean that I didn't believe in the message of the water bottle. I just didn't think that would be the thing. I thought it was a good, useful tip, but not the tip to like, end all be all.
No, for
So
sure.
that's all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is smart. Like I used to get a gallon of water every day, and it became, it was like $1 or $2. But I wanted to do it because it was forcing me to drink the gallon of water. And when I don't have that, I don't hold myself accountable. So it does work. And
Yeah,
that's
it
why
does.
people were like,
Anyway, well, this was amazing. As we wrap up, why don't you? I'll link to everything. Excuse me, down below. But for the audio people, give them all the usual plugs.
Yeah. So you can find me everywhere, Mark Rodriguez TV, and for our other brand, Mastermind Media, mastermindmedia.com, all that kind of good stuff. And yeah, man.
Mine
really,
spelled with Y though.
This is correct. This is right, because the I was already taken. Yeah, Mastermind with a Y, MYND media.com.
Awesome. Well, like I said, I'll link to it in the description as well and all that. It has been a pleasure, and we'll do a part 2, I'm sure.